Hello, and thanks for joining us for today's webinar titled, Did You Cover Your SaaS? 3 Reasons to Back Up Microsoft Exchange 365. I'm Kevin Collins from Unitrends, and I'm here with Brooke Bowman in Product Marketing, and she'll be taking us through the presentation today. And don't forget, one lucky attendee will be walking away with a $100 Amazon gift card. We'll contact the winner via email after the webinar. But before we get started, I'd like to cover a few housekeeping items. This session will be recorded, and after the event, you'll receive an email with a link to the on-demand version of the webinar. I would also encourage you to ask questions throughout the presentation. You can do so by typing them into the Q&A box in the bottom right of the player, and we'll answer your questions at the end of the session. At this point, I'll turn it over to Brooke. Enjoy the presentation, and Brooke, take it away.
All right. Thanks, Kevin. Welcome, everyone. We're glad you're here. Kevin, can you hear me okay?
Yep, can hear you fine.
Okay, great. All right, so today we'll be talking about 3 reasons to back up Microsoft Office 365. Reason number 1 is to avoid permanent data loss. After this presentation, you'll understand the causes of data loss in the cloud and what you can do about it. Reason number 2 is to save time. So we'll talk about the limitations and the time drain of relying on the built-in tools that come with Microsoft and what your alternatives are for data protection and data recovery. And then reason number 3 to back up Office 365 is to keep your business running and save the day. So we'll cover how you can easily back up Office 365 and to cover your SaaS. So software as a service or SaaS deployments like Microsoft Office 365 are growing in popularity in both large and small businesses. If you've been working in IT for even just a few years, you've been seeing the shift from traditionally installed applications with permanent licenses to cloud-based SaaS applications. Office 365 is one that's really catching on for both small and big businesses. If you check out the blog on unitrends.com, you'll see a new infographic, which is partially shown here, that discusses increasing Office 365 adoption among small businesses in particular. So according to Gartner, in 2015, 15% of business users leverage cloud applications. That usage is expected to grow to 60% in 2022, bringing us to a total of 700 million users of cloud applications in a business environment. This statistic really underscores how the IT world is shifting and how businesses and administrators are adapting and moving towards SaaS. The reasons make sense. For one thing, SaaS offers many benefits, including high availability, remote user access, and ease of deployment. Specific to Office 365, many IT admins find it faster and easier to manage compared to traditional Office installation. But remember that SaaS does not equal backup. Just because an application is highly available doesn't mean your data is protected or recoverable. So if your business is making the shift towards SaaS, remember that availability is not the same thing as recoverability. Office 365 in particular doesn't include tools for easily recovering lost or deleted data. And if you research Microsoft on this and read their materials, you'll see a lot of talk about availability, about replication, a little bit about restoring a single email, either from a recycle bin or with an archiving tool. But when it comes to true backup, Microsoft notes that that's really not part of what's included with Office 365. One thing I found in a recent TechNet article stated that, and this is a quote, a point-in-time restoration of mailbox items is out of the scope of Office 365. So it's up to you to back up your Office 365 environment and ensure that permanent data loss doesn't occur. So that brings us to our first reason, avoiding permanent data loss in your Office 365 environment. Has this ever happened to you? One of your users, or maybe a lot of your users, keep accidentally deleting files and then wanting you to restore those files immediately. For instance, one common scenario is that your business has a limit on the size of your user's Outlook mailbox, And so as users are cleaning out their mailbox to keep undersized, they end up deleting emails that later they figure out they really needed. And sometimes they don't realize those emails were necessary until they've already been cleared out of the Office 365 recycle bin. So what we've been hearing from our customers is that this is happening a lot. And if you bug Microsoft about where to find that lost email, they'll say, it's not our problem. You should have backed it up. So remember that Microsoft is bringing you high availability with Office 365, which is great, but it's not the same thing as data protection. Additionally, your backup for your on-premises servers and virtual machines doesn't cover data that is created in and lives in the Office 365 cloud. But how exactly does data loss happen in the cloud? What are the threats? As pictured on this chart, a study from the Aberdeen Group shows that 32% of companies have lost data in the cloud, and as more and more businesses adopt cloud applications, it's expected that this number will grow. The most common reason is user error, but hackers, malicious deletion, closing an account, and interference from third-party software can all cause data loss. And a lot of times this data loss takes IT admins by surprise. They didn't realize that they needed backup for the cloud application. In the case of Office 365, email has a small default recycle bin, 14 days, can be extended to 30 days. After that, email is completely unrecoverable. SharePoint and OneDrive will let you hang on to items for longer, 186 days in the recycle bin, but that 6 months still doesn't cover a long-term retention policy. So how do you avoid data loss in the cloud? First, you need to have backup in place so that the data is protected. But if you've ever worked with a subpar backup solution, you know that recovery is just as important as backup. It doesn't do you much good if it's impossible to find or restore the data that you need. So in addition to complete data protection, you need rapid data recovery to find that lost data. And really you're looking for a tool that lets you restore it right back to where it was without stress, extra cost, expertise that you may not have on your team, or other time-consuming tasks that just bog you down. So we know you have a lot of other things on your plate, and when it comes to data protection, you want it to be easy. Because like we'll explore in the next section, you've got better things to do than search for a lost email or spend a ton of time on backup. That brings us to reason number 2, save time. So when we talk about backing up Office 365, sometimes we hear people say, you know, do I really have to? Doesn't Microsoft do backup for me? Or at least have some recovery tools included? So the short answer is yes. In some packages of Office 365, like E3 or higher, some archiving tools are included. But trying to use those tools for backup and data recovery is a bit like trying to build a website in Notepad. You could do it, but why would you when there's better tools available? So you know that Microsoft does a great job with Office 365 and that your users couldn't do their work without it. But for the IT admin, recovering lost Office 365 data can be painful or even impossible if you're just relying on the built-in tools. So first, let's talk more specifically about the limitations of what's built in with Office 365 for backup and recovery. We'll start by talking about the differences in each Office 365 package. And so here we're looking at E1, which is one of the more basic versions and includes Exchange Online, but not SharePoint and OneDrive. In the case of E1, the built-in recovery tools are very minimal. It's pretty much a recycle bin. Exchange's default retention period for that recycle bin is 14 days. You can go into your settings and extend that period for up to 30 days. But still, if you're looking for a deleted email, you'll be combing through a big recycle bin, which can take a lot of time. Your user may also be able to permanently delete the email, skipping the recycle bin so it isn't there at all, or by the time they realize it's gone, the email could have already been purged, and in those cases, you won't be able to recover it at all. So in the case of Office 365 E1, just building the built-in tools offers you pretty limited data protection and limited data recovery. If you have E3 or E5, you get those additional Office applications like SharePoint and OneDrive. And depending on your license, you will see some things that sound a little bit like data protection. But when you research, you'll see that those features are not, they're not truly backup. And the features I'm talking about are in-place archiving and litigation hold. Those are available with those expanded E3 and E5 licenses. Those archiving features do offer a little bit of data protection, but definitely not quick and easy recovery. So some of the limitations there, first of all, policy setup and management is pretty complicated. It can be expensive. You may need someone with a lot of expertise on your team to set that up up front, which is costly. And then it's costly to recover data, too, in terms of the time, resources, and expertise needed to get that data back. And if you're just using what Microsoft has built in, the data isn't restored as it was, where it was. That's because Office 365 captures the data in transit, not at rest. And so at the bottom of this slide, here's the steps that you may have to go through to recover data from Office 365, E3, or E5. You'll see the starting point there in red is that the data is lost. So at that point, step one is you'll need to search the discovery mailbox. If you find what you need, you'll export it to a PSP file. Step three is importing that file back to another profile. And then step four is replicating that to the server. Step five might be the hardest one, and that's crossing your fingers and hoping that it worked like you expected and that the user gets what they needed. So that's the limitation of recovering emails, just using Office 365 built-in tools. And so what about SharePoint and OneDrive documents or files? It's really still not easy. Basically, you just get a recycle bin. As we mentioned, that retention is limited to 186 days, and permanently deleted files are gone forever. So even with an enhanced E3 or E5 license, the data protection and data recovery tools are still limited and time-consuming if you're just using Office 365. So as we showed, if you just use Microsoft's built-in tools, unfortunately, you'll spend a bunch of time jumping through hoops to recover lost or deleted files if they're still there. But Unitrends offers another way. So this brings us to reason number 3 to back up Microsoft Office 365. It means you get to keep your business running and save the day. So maybe your user deleted a file or an email yesterday, or maybe it was 30 days ago, maybe 60 days ago. But once they discover they miss it, they typically want it back immediately. Most businesses today have very low tolerance for downtime or even waiting on IT to restore a file. So if you're in this situation and you just have Office 365, you may find yourself having to scramble to find and recover that file. Especially if that user is an executive or someone under a critical company deadline. So instead of telling them that it may take you a few hours to find that lost file in the Office 365 recycle bin, or worse, having to tell them that you can't find it at all, that it's been permanently deleted, with Unitrends you can go in, do a quick search, and put the file back in just a few clicks. And if your user lost something bigger, say a whole set of SharePoint or OneDrive files, or an important Outlook contact, or even an entire mailbox, you can quickly get that back to you. So Unitrends Cloud Backup for Office 365 is a service that deploys easily. The backup is automatic, built specifically for working with Office 365. So your user experience is intuitive and fast. So earlier we talked about how backup and data protection is critical, but also how recovery is just as important. With Unitrends, you get both sides of the story covered. You get automatic backup that you don't have to manage. It will protect your email, files, and accounts in Office 365. And then you get rapid data recovery. There's a fast search, and you can restore deleted items in minutes. Here's a brief overview of what's included in Unitrends Backup for Office 365. As we just mentioned, the backup is automatic. You can truly put it on autopilot and focus on your other projects, which we know you have a lot of. Plus, if you do need to recover something, it's self-service and it can happen in seconds or minutes, so that's minimal disruption to your day. Retention in the cloud is unlimited, so you know that your backups will always be there when you need them. There's also secure encryption, of course, and setup is easy, and it's all handled by Unitrends. There's nothing for you to download or install. And finally, the pricing is simple. It's per user per month on an annual contract with 2 packages available, and we'll go over those details a little bit more at the end of the presentation. So how does it work? Unitrends Cloud Backup for Office 365 runs as a service within the Microsoft Azure cloud. So it brings you automatic discovery and protection. As I mentioned, we get it up and running for you, so nothing for you to do there. The backup takes up to 6 snapshots per day and supports granular recovery. One question we get a lot is what happens when you add new users, which can happen pretty frequently in your Office 365 environment. Those are automatically discovered and protected by our backup service, so you don't have to make a configuration change as you're getting new users or new employees at your business. And then with our unlimited retention, we never delete your data. It's always there in the cloud for you when you need it. And the recovery is easy and self-service. So let's talk more about the differences in data protection and recovery if you're using Unitrends compared to just using built-in Office 365 tools. So really, what we do is cover the critical gaps in native Office 365. If you lose something, we can get it back in the right place and do that quickly, which is just something you don't get from the native tools. So remember, if you're using Exchange Online alone with no backup, you have to comb through a recycle bin to find your files and then jump through hoops to restore those. Instead, with Unitrends, you browse to the user interface and you search for the username or browse from a list, select what you want, and restore. So recovering the same file using Unitrends might take you about 5 minutes compared to something that could take you 5 hours if you're just using Office 365 archiving. Plus, with Unitrends, you can recover more items like calendars and contacts and Exchange, which is something Office 365 can't do at all. So here's a screenshot of Unitrends backup of Exchange. And this is what I was just talking about, is the fast and easy recovery process. You see you have a list of users here. You could search for a username up in the search box, or you could browse the list, whatever you prefer, and will be faster for you. You can search for something specific, like an email subject, and then restore it. You can also see here there's a drop-down menu for a bulk restore if you want to recover, say, a full mailbox or a full calendar. So you can see here it's pretty easy, pretty self-explanatory to use this, and the recovery is fast. So that's how protecting email and recovering email works with Unitrends. So what about SharePoint and OneDrive? So it's the same as our Exchange protection. It's pretty easy. You can restore those files with no problem, even after the recycle bin is emptied. One question we get a lot is about versioning. So you can restore older versions of files if you have versioning turned on in Office 365. And the 6 snapshots a day let you pick a point in time to roll back to. And the graphic down below here is just recapping some of the ways that just how data can't be lost in SharePoint or in OneDrive. Site admins can permanently delete, files can get corrupted, and end users can delete files as well. But with Unitrends, you'll be able to get those back. So here's a screenshot of a Unitrends backup of a SharePoint site. You can see, much like the Exchange backup, it's easy to use, pretty intuitive. There's a search for finding the file that you want to restore, as well as a list of site collections that are protected. Here's a screenshot of the OneDrive backup. It looks pretty similar. There's a couple different views, but this one is by username. So there's a list of files shown here, and this screen is showing after we've already searched for a username up at the top. So then you can select the file that you need to restore. You can do another search here. You could browse the list and select all the files that you need back. You can select more at one time if you want to, and then click that blue Restore button up on the top right there. And then Unitrends will put that file right back to where it was in your user's OneDrive account, so they can get back to work quickly, and you can too. So that's the user interface, and just to circle back to unlimited retention, which is personally one of my favorite features. So as I'm sure you've experienced before, constantly managing storage limits in the cloud can be a real waste of time. But with our unlimited retention, you don't have to bother with it. And even more importantly, our unlimited retention means that we never delete your data. So you know it will be there when you need it. This unlimited retention in the cloud is included with our affordable per user per month price. All right, so are you ready to give Unitrends Backup a try? We do have a free trial available for request online. If you go to unitrends.com/Office365backup, you'll see there's a form there to fill out and get started. There's nothing for you to download, so after you fill out the form, we'll get in touch with you to set up the trial service. So details on pricing, we have 2 packages. One is for email backup only, a great option if you're using Office 365 E1 with Exchange Online. It's $3 per user per month. It covers emails, contacts, folders, and mailboxes within Exchange, and the price is based on an annual contract. If you've got Office 365 E3 or E5, you might be looking at the package that protects email, OneDrive, and SharePoint. That is $4 per user per month. You get the same full protection of Exchange Online, emails, folders, and mailboxes. You also get protection for OneDrive and SharePoint. The pricing setup is the same. It's $4 per user per month on an annual contract. And we do have discounts available for large installations. So definitely get in touch with us about that if that's your business. So now you know how to back up your SaaS with Unitrends Cloud Backup for Office 365. So remember that the per user pricing, one benefit of it is it scales to your installation. You pay for what you need. You can easily grow over time. It's a very predictable spend and budget with no storage costs, no networking costs, and unlimited retention. All right, so Unitrends and Office 365, we believe they're better together. We hope you'll give it a try. So we're about to move on to the FAQ portion of the webinar. But before we do, I just wanted to let you know of our new promos that we just launched. And this is for your on-premises data protection. So for a limited time, you can get a free upgrade to the next larger Recovery Series appliance. This is a great way to be ready for future data growth at a really affordable price. Depending on what appliance size you're looking at, you can save over $60,000 with this deal. So it's a really great option, and I know we have a lot of current customers on the line, so remember this deal is available for you too if you're looking to upgrade your appliance soon. So this is on our homepage as well if you go there, or of course contact us or your Unitrends reseller or partner if you'd like more information. All right, and we're ready for questions.
Excellent, Brooke. Thanks so much. We're going to do Q&A a little bit differently this time. We've run this webinar a couple of times now, and there's been a lot of questions around a few different types of subjects. So we're going to run through those first, and then we'll handle individual questions. But chances are your question will be answered in the FAQ that we're going to cover now. So we'll start with the first one. How long is the free trial?
The free trial is 15 days. And like I said, just go online and get in touch with us if you want to get that started, and we'll get it set up for you. Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention about the trial is the good thing about it is you're using the real product. So you'll have a really painless transition if you decide to buy, and you'll get to keep the data that you backed up in the cloud while you were using the trial.
Okay, let's see what the next question is here. Next question is, what's the range of time it takes to restore something?
So it can be really fast. Usually in our test, it's seconds or minutes, especially if we're talking about a single email or a file. Something larger, like a whole set of files or definitely a mailbox, will take a little bit longer. But the process of finding what you need and kicking that restore process off is really fast and easy. So that way you can get it started, and then you can work on something else while the restore is happening. But again, if we're just looking at a few files or a single file, just seconds or minutes.
Okay. You'd mentioned something about discounting was available for large user sets. How large are we talking about?
Yeah, so right now we're starting those discounts at 1,000 users. And we've got quite a few tiers available, so if that's your business, just get in touch with us and we can get you some specific pricing based on your user set.
Okay. I'm in Canada. Can I choose where my data in the cloud is physically located?
Yes, you can. And the way that works is you can specify your region in Azure when we're getting the service set up for you.
Okay. What do I pay for recoveries and bandwidth?
So that's a good question. There's definitely some other service providers out there that will charge you for recovery, and that sometimes surprises businesses and can be a real bummer when you've got to get your data back. But for us, there is no fee for recoveries or bandwidth. It's all included with your package. So when you need to recover data, it'll be right there in the cloud, and it will not be any cost to you.
Okay. Next question is, does Unitrends support granular recovery?
Yes, we do support granular recovery, meaning that you choose the item or file that you want to restore.
And what about, does Unitrends support versioning in SharePoint and OneDrive?
Yes, if you've got that versioning turned on in advance, then with your backup, you can choose to restore a specific version of a file or an item. Well, that's really handy since sometimes your users will accidentally override a version and then want to get back to a previous one.
Okay. What security measures are in place?
So we use per contact AES 256 encryption. That's backed by an RSA 2048 debt public-private key certificate. Additionally, we only restore your data back to the original mailbox or site, so that prevents a non-owner or an unauthorized user from accessing the data.
Okay. Here's a question from Brian, just to clarify something that you said earlier. I'm sorry, I didn't hear it clearly. What is the number for $3, 1,000? Does it get cheaper for greater than 1,000 users?
Yes, it does. So it's $3 per user per month if you're just looking at email only, Exchange only, and then $4 per user per month if you're looking at the package for Exchange, SharePoint, and OneDrive. And then if you have over 1,000 users, we start discounting there. If you have an even larger set, there's tiered discounts, so we can get you a really advantageous per user price. So just get in touch with us, and we can really quickly give you a quote that's specific to your environment, so you'll know exactly what you're looking at.
Okay. How are users counted for licensing purposes?
So since the backup is automatic, the way that we have it set up is you'll want to purchase licenses for the total numbers of users in your Office 365 environment.
Okay. What if I add Office 365 users after the initial setup? How do I get these users backed up, and how am I billed?
Great question. We know there's often a lot of new users added to Office 365. So the way we've set it up is so that those new users will be automatically discovered and protected by Unitrends. So you don't have to go in and make a configuration change there in your cloud backup. And then we perform an automatic monthly audit of your account, and then we'll get in touch with you about any additional users and any changes in license fees. So at that time, you'll have a choice if you want to officially add these users to your Unitrends account, and that will change your contract slightly, or you can decide that you don't need those users and don't need them backed up, and you can remove them.
Okay. Let's see, next question is, if I remove users from my Office 365 account, what happens to their backups?
So their backups stay where they are. They remain available as long as your contract is active with us. And that's one of the benefits of our unlimited retention. There's no need to go in there and clean out those old data sets. And sometimes that really comes in handy, too, if you need data from a user that's no longer with your company.
Okay. I'm an existing user of Unitrends. Excuse me. How do I take advantage of the Office 365 backup?
So it's really easy. You just get in touch with us or with your Unitrends reseller or partner, and we can add Office 365 backup to your account. And that's available for any Unitrends customer. It doesn't matter whether you're running Recovery Series appliances or Unitrends backup software. We can get that set up.
Okay. And Matt is asking a follow-up question to some of the licensing. So they can't purchase licenses for only half their customers if they choose to?
Correct. It's designed to protect the whole user set. And let me get back to that, see if I can go back to the pricing slide for you. Any other questions?
Let's see. All right, hold on. All right, let's look at some that came in from the audience. Is the price at all determined by the amount of data stored, or is it just by the amount of users?
It's completely by the amount of users. So with the unlimited retention, you've got nothing to worry about as far as your data footprint. It will not affect your licensing cost at all.
Okay, let me see if I can find one or two more questions. I think most have been covered by the questions that we've been going over. Can Unitrends be used for typical e-discover searches, looking for user emails or emails with certain phrases?
Yes, I believe so. I might need to get in touch with you offline to make sure we know specifically what you're asking. But if you think back to the screenshot that I showed, you can do a search for specific subject lines or specific phrases and find the email you need and then restore that.
Okay.
And if that didn't fully answer your question, just if you wouldn't mind noting it in the chat box, and then we'll get back in touch with you after the webinar.
All right. And also, can they set retention policies, like delete information after 7 years?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we'll need to get back to you in more detail there and understand a little bit more about what you're looking for. Right now, the default is just set to be unlimited so that the data is always there, but we may be able to accommodate that for you.
Okay. All right, and I think probably one more question just to clarify. Can you talk a little bit more about kind of adding and deleting users as well as only backing up certain users or all users?
Okay, definitely. So the way that the service is set up, since it runs automatically and you don't have to manage it as the IT admin, it protects your whole user set in Office 365. Now, if you are using, say you've got an E3 or an E5 package, usually we recommend the email, OneDrive, and SharePoint backup that will protect everything for you. But you do have the option to just do the email backup if you don't care about protecting the files in SharePoint and OneDrive. So that's an option, a way that you can tailor it. But as far as protecting just part of your user set, that's not something that the service is designed to do. It protects everyone in that environment. So let's talk about two things. So when users are added, first of all, they'll be automatically discovered by Unitrends, and they'll be automatically backed up as soon as they're discovered, which will happen within probably 24 hours that you add them. It's pretty fast. So that way you don't have any gaps in coverage in your backup. And then as far as your licensing and pricing, we do a monthly audit, and if there is users, if we do see that new users were added, we'll get in touch with you at that time about the licensing costs for those new users, and those will be added to your contract if you approve. If you decide you want to remove those users from Office 365 and just keep the user number at where it was, then we can do that too. When users are deleted, their backups stay in the cloud as part of the unlimited retention, and those users will stay as part of your contract. And then if things are shifting around a lot and need to discuss what exactly that contract covers, we'll do that too. And that happens on an annual basis anyway. And then as far as protecting, and remembering all parts of the question here, as far as protecting only a subset of users, I think I mentioned that we're designed to protect the whole set. But if that's a deal breaker for you, just get in touch with us and let's get into the details about your specific environment and your needs, and we'll see what we can do.
Okay. Let's see. I think that's just about it for the questions. I think that you've covered just about everything here. So thank you, everybody. As a reminder, we'll be pulling the $100 Amazon gift card winner, and we'll contact you via email within the next day or so. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate your time, and we look forward to seeing you on another webinar. Take care.